The wreckage field around the dead moon was silent, but it did not feel empty. It felt like something was watching. Broken ships drifted like the bones of giants. Metal plates turned slowly in the cold light of a distant star, and small fires still burned inside cracked alien hulls, even though the battle had ended months ago. Elias moved through the floating debris in his small repair shuttle, scanning for anything he could sell. He was not a soldier, not a hero, just a human scavenger who survived by fixing what others left behind. He liked quiet jobs like this. No questions, no danger, just broken machines waiting for his hands. But today the silence felt heavy, like the battlefield did not want to be disturbed. He guided the shuttle toward a large, shattered alien cruiser, its body torn open as if something had ripped through it from the inside. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its broken walls. Elias had seen alien tech before, but this design was older, royal, the kind of armor and ships only high commanders used. He floated out of his shuttle in a magnetic suit and entered through a cracked window. Inside, the gravity systems were dead. Tools and weapons drifted around him like ghosts. He scanned for power cores or rare alloys. That was when he saw it. At the center of the destroyed command room, resting against a cracked throne-like seat, was a suit of armor. It was tall and elegant, shaped for a body that was not human. Its surface was silver, but darker in some places as if burned by energy blasts. Thin lines of blue light ran across it like veins, but they were faint, almost dead. Elias slowly moved closer. His scanner showed no active power source, no signal, no heat. It should have been just another piece of scrap, but something about it felt wrong. He reached out and touched the metal. It was warm. Elias quickly pulled his hand back. His heart began to beat faster. The entire ship was freezing cold. Space had drained all warmth long ago, but this armor felt alive. He checked his scanner again. Still nothing. No battery reading. No radiation spike. No hidden core. He swallowed and told himself it was leftover energy trapped in the alloy. That was possible, rare but possible. He reached out again, this time pressing his palm against a chest plate. The blue lines suddenly brightened. Elias stumbled backward as the armor stood upright on its own. Metal plates shifted smoothly. Small particles of dust floated away as if pushed by invisible air. The helmet turned slowly toward him. There were no eyes, but he felt its gaze. His suit alarm began to beep. Unknown signal detected. Unknown signal detected. Before he could move, the armor stepped forward and grabbed his wrist. The touch was not violent, but it was strong, impossibly strong. Blue light rushed from the armor into his glove. His entire suit shut down instantly. Lights flickered out, thrusters died, and he floated helpless in the air. A sharp pain shot through his arm. Then a voice whispered inside his mind. Not loud, not clear, but present. Guardian found. Elias gasped. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. The armor's chest opened slightly. Mechanical pieces unfolded like petals, and before he could resist, liquid metal spread over his arm, climbing up to his shoulder, sealing around him. It was cold for 1 second, then perfectly warm, fitting his body like it had always belonged there. A hologram suddenly formed in front of him. It showed a tall alien woman wearing a crown made of light. Her eyes were sharp and calm, her expression serious. Even in hologram form, she carried power. If you are seeing this, she said in a clear voice, then my empire has fallen. Elias froze. He did not understand the language fully, but somehow the armor translated it directly into his thoughts. You were chosen not for strength, the queen continued, but for unpredictability. The hologram flickered. Behind her appeared scenes of burning planets and fleets of ships fighting in deep space. They betrayed me, she said quietly, and they will search for this armor. Suddenly the hologram vanished. Alarms echoed through the broken cruiser. Long-range scanners activated from somewhere deep inside the ship. A signal had been sent. Elias struggled as more pieces of the armor moved. They wrapped around his chest, his legs, locking into place with smooth precision. He tried to pull away, but it was useless. The armor was not attacking him. It was completing him. His breathing became steady as a new life support system activated inside the suit. A heads-up display appeared in front of his eyes. Symbols, and star maps filled his vision. Outside the cruiser, distant ships began to power up. Dark shapes moved behind the moon. Someone had detected the armor's awakening. Royal's signature confirmed. A mechanical voice inside the helmet said calmly, "Hostiles approaching." Elias's fear turned into cold realization. This was not scrap. This was not abandoned. This armor belonged to someone powerful, and now it had chosen him. The floor beneath him suddenly dissolved into light. Energy surrounded his body. Space itself seemed to bend, and before Elias could scream, everything disappeared. In the empty battlefield, the broken cruiser went silent again. And far away, on a hidden ocean world covered in endless storms, something ancient began to wake. If you enjoy stories like this and want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next part, because Elias has just stepped into a war that was never meant for humans. And the armor whispered once more inside his mind. The Queen lives. Elias felt the cold rush of teleportation tear through his body. Then everything stopped at once. He was no longer floating in space. He was standing on solid ground. Water roared somewhere far below, and heavy rain crashed against a transparent shield above him. He stood on a wide platform made of dark crystal metal. The sky above was not truly sky, but an ocean. Massive waves moved slowly overhead like a second world held back by invisible force. Lightning flashed inside the water, lighting up. Enormous shapes swimming beyond the shield. He was inside something built beneath an entire ocean, and the armor around his body hummed softly as if it had finally returned home. A calm voice spoke inside his helmet. "Welcome to the hidden court." Elias turned slowly. Before him stood tall, alien figures wearing deep blue robes and silver masks. Their eyes glowed faintly through narrow slits. None of them looked surprised. None of them looked confused. They looked prepared, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment. The platform extended toward a massive palace carved into the seabed rock. Glowing towers rose behind it, their lights pulsing like heartbeats. This was not a ruin, not a lost place. It was alive and functioning, hidden from the rest of the galaxy. One of the masked figures stepped forward. "The royal armor has chosen," the figure said quietly. "The prophecy moves." Elias's heart pounded inside the suit. He tried to speak, but the armor spoke for him. Its voice deeper and calm. Identity confirmed. Guardian candidate integrated. The masked aliens lowered their heads slightly, not in respect to Elias, but to the armor. He quickly realized something terrifying. The armor had more authority than he did. The platform began to move forward automatically, carrying him toward the palace entrance. Massive doors opened slowly, as if recognizing the armor's signal. Inside, the hall was enormous. Pillars shaped like curved blades rose to a ceiling filled with glowing symbols. And at the far end stood a throne, empty, cracked at one side, but still powerful. "The Queen is dead," one of the masked figures said, but there was hesitation in the voice. The armor's systems pulsed, and suddenly holographic screens appeared in front of Elias's eyes. Battle footage, explosions, fleets burning in space, alien soldiers fighting each other. Not humans, not other species, their own kind. A civil war, Elias whispered to himself. "Yes," the masked figure replied, hearing him through the armor's translator. "The High Council betrayed her. They claimed she sought forbidden power. They declared her a threat to balance." Lightning flashed above, shaking the shield slightly. Water trembled like a restless beast. They destroyed the royal fleet. They announced her execution, and the galaxy believed it. Elias looked at the empty throne again. Something felt wrong. Too organized, too calm for a fallen empire. If she is dead, Elias asked carefully, why hide this place? The hall grew quiet. Even the rain seemed softer. Another masked figure stepped forward, voice lower than the first, because the queen planned for betrayal. The armor responded immediately, unlocking hidden memory files. A new hologram appeared before the throne. The same crowned alien woman Elias had seen before, but this time her expression was different. Not defeated, not afraid, but calculating. If you see this, the hologram said, then the council has revealed their fear. Elias watched closely. They fear evolution, she continued. They fear unpredictability. They fear losing control. The hologram shifted, showing star systems and highlighted worlds, including Earth. They will seek this armor, she said calmly, because within it lies the final key. The masked figures all looked toward Elias at once. Elias felt a cold chill despite the armor regulating his temperature. What key? He asked. But before anyone could answer, the entire palace trembled violently. Alarms echoed across the hall. Red lights flashed along the pillars. Royal signal detected beyond shield perimeter. A mechanical voice announced loudly. High Council warships entering orbit. The masked figures stiffened. They found us too quickly, one whispered. The armor systems began to adjust around Elias. Energy levels rising, combat systems activating, new data flowing into his vision, targeting grids forming in his sight. You have been located, the armor said calmly. Hostile forces inbound. Through the transparent shield above, dark shapes appeared within the ocean sky. Massive triangular warships descending through the water as if it were air, their engines glowing deep red, long weapon arrays extending from their sides. They moved slowly, confidently, like predators certain of victory. The council believes the queen is truly dead, the masked leader said quietly. If they discover the armor active, they will know she planned something greater. Elias swallowed. He was just a scavenger yesterday. Now alien warships were arriving because of him. Suddenly, a new signal appeared in his helmet display. Encrypted, hidden deep inside the armor's core. Signal origin, unknown. Authorization level, royal. The message began to decode slowly. A single line appeared before his eyes. I am not dead. Elias's breathing stopped. Outside, the first council warship fired a warning blast into the ocean shield. Cracks of blue light spread across the protective barrier. Water pressed harder against it, and lightning exploded through the waves. Inside his helmet, the message continued to form. Guardian, the war has only begun. And for the first time, Elias understood. The Queen's hidden war was not about reclaiming a throne. It was about something far more dangerous than power. And now the entire galaxy would burn to stop it. The palace shook again as another blast struck the ocean shield. Thin cracks of blue light spreading like veins across the ceiling of water above. But inside the armor, something far more powerful was happening. Elias felt a deep pulse in his chest. Not his own heartbeat, but the core of the suit awakening fully for the first time. Lines of light moved across his arms and legs, and new systems unlocked one after another. Hidden layers of code began unfolding inside his mind as if doors long. Sealed were finally opening. The masked figures stepped back instinctively, their glowing eyes fixed on him, because they could sense it too. The royal armor was no longer dormant. It was revealing its true purpose. Accessing Queen's memory vault, the armor announced calmly inside his head. And suddenly Elias was no longer standing in the throne hall. His body remained there, but his mind was pulled into a vast digital chamber filled with floating symbols and rotating star maps. It felt endless, like standing inside a galaxy made of data, and at the center of it all stood the holographic form of the alien queen once again. But this time she looked directly at him, not as a recording, not as a projection, but aware. You adapt quickly, she said softly, her voice steady but carrying weight. That is why the armor chose you. Elias tried to speak, but realized he did not need to. His thoughts flowed directly into the chamber. You're alive, he said in his mind. I exist between states, she replied. My body was targeted, but my consciousness was divided, hidden within the royal armor and across secure nodes. Outside in the real palace, another explosion shook the structure, but inside the vault it was silent, untouched by war. The council believes power comes from control. The queen continued, walking slowly around him as stars shifted behind her. They do not understand evolution. They do not understand chaos. Images formed in the air, ancient battles, experiments, strange energy patterns. Then a blueprint began assembling piece by piece, far more complex than any weapon Elias had ever seen. It was not shaped like a bomb or cannon. It was shaped like a network, spreading across systems, connecting stars like threads. "This is what they fear," she said. "What is it?" Elias asked carefully. "A transformation engine," she replied. "It does not destroy worlds, it changes them." Elias stared at the design, confused. "It rewrites the core laws of energy distribution," she explained. "It frees civilizations from dependence on centralized control." Elias slowly understood. The council ruled through scarcity, through power grids and control technology. If this engine activated across the galaxy, their authority would collapse overnight. "They called it forbidden," the queen said quietly, "because it would make empires unnecessary." Outside, warning sirens screamed louder. The ocean shield cracked further, and shadows of council soldiers could now be seen descending through the water in armored pods. "You hid this inside the suit," Elias said. "Yes," she answered, "but the design is incomplete. The blueprint flickered, parts missing, encrypted sections locked. Only a mind that thinks differently can complete it," she said. "My people follow patterns, traditions. They search for answers in familiar logic, but you humans do not." Elias felt both fear and strange pride. He was just a repairman. He fixed broken engines and patched cracked hulls. "You see problems as puzzles," she continued. "You combine scrap into miracles." The blueprint zoomed closer, and Elias suddenly noticed something strange. Certain segments were mirrored, repeated at different scales, not symmetrical, but layered like mechanical recursion. "That's not missing," Elias said slowly. "It's folded." The queen paused, studying him carefully. "It's compressed through phase overlap," he continued, pieces clicking together in his mind. "You hid the final code inside its own structure." The encrypted sections began to glow as the armor responded to his thought process. Layers unfolded, revealing the final segments of the engine's core. In the real world, the masked figures gasped softly as new light patterns spread across Elias's armor, brighter than before. "The Guardian is unlocking Phase 9, one whispered in disbelief. Back inside the vault, the queen looked at him differently now, not as a candidate, but as confirmation. "You see what my scientists could not," she said quietly. Another violent impact struck the palace. Part of the shield shattered completely, and water began pouring through in controlled torrents, emergency barriers activating instantly. "We are out of time," the queen said, her form beginning to destabilize. "What happens if the council captures this?" Elias asked urgently. "They will not activate it," she said. "They will erase it, and every world will remain chained." Suddenly a new alert appeared in his vision. Hostile boarding units detected within outer corridors. The vault began collapsing around him as the armor pulled his consciousness back into his physical body. The throne hall returned in sharp detail. Masked figures drawing energy weapons, doors sealing automatically. But one final whisper echoed inside his mind before the connection faded. "I'm closer than you think." Elias stood taller now. The blueprint of the transformation engine burned into his thoughts, not fully built yet, but alive. The council soldiers breached the outer gates, their heavy footsteps echoing through the palace corridors, red armor glowing through rising mist. And as Elias raised his hand, the royal armor shifted shape for the first time in a full combat form. Wings of light extending from his back, energy flowing through him like controlled lightning. The secret inside the suit was no longer hidden, and the war had just stepped through the door. The first council soldiers entered the throne hall like shadows cutting through light, their armor dark red and sharp at the edges, their helmets smooth and without expression, each one carrying long energy blades that hummed with deadly calm. Water vapor rolled in behind them from the shattered corridors, mixing with sparks from broken systems. And for a brief second, everything went still. Elias stood alone at the center of the hall beneath the cracked throne, blue light flowing across his royal armor like quiet lightning. The masked figures had taken defensive positions along the pillars, but even they looked unsure, because descending from above the ocean shield were not just soldiers, but the assassin fleet itself. The High Council's most feared hunters, ships built not for war, but for execution. Through the transparent ceiling, Elias could see them clearly now. 5 massive warships shaped like blades, their hulls absorbing light instead of reflecting it, each one positioned perfectly around the hidden palace, forming a cage in orbit. Smaller assault craft detached from their sides and dove through the ocean barrier, shields glowing as they pierced the water like burning meteors. They were not attacking wildly. They were closing in with surgical patience, as if the outcome had already been decided. Target confirmed. A cold mechanical voice echoed from the lead assassin as he stepped forward, his armor thicker than the others, marked with glowing white lines that formed the symbol of the Council. Royal armor active. Guardian identified as human species. There was a faint pause, almost confusion. Human, the assassin repeated, as if the word carried little value. Elias felt anger rise. Not loud, not explosive, but steady. He was tired of being underestimated, first as a scavenger, now as an outsider in an alien war. The assassin raised his blade. Surrender the armor, and your termination will be swift. Before Elias could respond, the armor spoke quietly inside his mind. Combat probability without adaptation, 23% survival. That's low, Elias whispered. Improvisation recommended, the armor replied. The assassin moved first, faster than Elias expected, a blur of red light crossing the hall in a fraction of a second. Elias barely raised his arm in time as the royal armor formed a glowing shield. The blade struck with explosive force, sending shock waves through the chamber. Pillars cracked, masked figures were thrown backward, and the throne split further down its center. Elias stumbled, but did not fall. The armor absorbed most of the impact, but warning symbols flashed in his vision. Structural stress increasing, power drain accelerating. The Council soldiers spread out, surrounding him in a tight circle, coordinated, silent, deadly. Outside, one of the assassin warships fired a focused beam at the palace shield. The remaining barrier shattered completely. Ocean water flooded outer districts. Emergency fields activated, but strain levels rose rapidly. The hidden court was collapsing piece by piece. You cannot win, the lead assassin said calmly. Advancing again. The queen is dead. Her secrets end here. Something inside Elias hardened at those words. He remembered the queen's hologram, her steady eyes, the unfinished blueprint burning in his mind. She's not dead, he said quietly. The assassin's helmet tilted slightly, almost amused. Then 3 soldiers attacked at once, blades flashing from different angles. Elias reacted without thinking, not using alien training, not following precise patterns. He moved the way he fixed machines, fast and instinctive. Using whatever angle worked, he grabbed a broken pillar as one blade missed him, swung it into another soldier, disrupting their formation, then used the armor's thrusters to launch himself upward, smashing through the ceiling of the throne hall and bursting into the open ocean above. Water swallowed him instantly, but the royal armor adapted, forming a pressure field around him, propelling him upward like a living torpedo. Above him, the assassin ships loomed enormous and silent, their weapons charging. Guardian exiting structure, the armor reported. Good, Elias said through clenched teeth, because we're not staying here. Behind him, several assassin units followed into the ocean, their propulsion systems slicing through the water with precision. They were faster, more advanced, trained for this environment. Inside his display, Elias studied the surrounding terrain, massive underwater rock formations, thermal vents releasing clouds of superheated gas, unstable magnetic currents from the planet's core. An idea formed, risky, imperfect human. Can you overload a vent? He asked the armor. Probability of destabilizing regional tectonic plate? High, it replied. That's the point, he said. He angled downward sharply, diving toward the deepest trench beneath the palace ruins, assassin units chasing closely behind, energy bolts flashing through dark water. One blast struck his back. Armor integrity dropped 5%. Alarms rising. He reached the vent and thrust his arm into the molten surge. The armor screamed warnings, heat level spiking, but he forced power into the core, redirecting the thermal energy outward in a focused pulse. The trench exploded with light, pressure waves slammed into the surrounding water, shock waves tore through the pursuing assassin units. Two were crushed instantly. Another spun out of control into a rock wall. Cracks spread along the seabed as magma surged violently upward. Above, one of the assassin warships lost stability as the tectonic shift disrupted its position, its shield flickering for the first time. The lead assassin's voice cut through the chaos, colder now, no longer calm. Human Guardian displays irregular tactics. Elias burst upward through rising debris, armor glowing brighter than ever, damage accumulating but systems holding. Unpredictable, he replied, almost smiling despite the danger. The remaining assassin ships adjusted formation, their central cannons charging simultaneously, not targeting the palace now, but him directly, 5 beams of concentrated energy aligning in perfect sync. Inside the helmet, the Queen's voice returned faintly, strained but clear. Elias, do not let them cage you. He hovered in the boiling ocean sky, surrounded by warships designed to erase civilizations, armor cracked in several places, power reserves dropping fast. And as the assassin fleet prepared to fire as one, Elias made a choice that no alien strategist would ever predict. He turned off the armor's primary shield and launched himself straight at the lead warship. Elias shot upward through the boiling ocean sky like a streak of blue fire, the assassin fleet's cannons flashing behind him as beams of energy tore through the water where he had been seconds before. The royal armor screamed warnings in his vision. Shield offline, structural integrity at 71%, core temperature rising, but he did not slow down because slowing down meant death, and he knew something the Council did not. He was not fighting to win a battle. He was forcing them to reveal their fear. The lead warship grew larger in front of him, its surface smooth and dark like a blade waiting to fall, its central cannon glowing brighter as it prepared a second shot. And just before impact, Elias twisted sideways and slammed his armored fist into the ship's outer hull, not to break through, but to attach, magnetic locks firing instantly as he clung to the surface while the ship attempted to shake him off. Inside the armor, new systems unlocked under extreme stress. Hidden protocols labeled Royal Override began to pulse, and without asking permission, the suit connected directly to the warship's outer network, streams of alien code rushing through his mind like lightning through wires. He felt their commands, their communications, their strict patterns of obedience, and in the center of it all, one transmission stood out, a signal coming not from the fleet, but from somewhere beyond, deeper in space, encrypted at the highest council level. The throne must remain empty. The message repeated in cold authority. Elias forced the connection deeper, ignoring the burning sensation in his skull as data flooded his thoughts. Images appeared in flashes. The Queen standing before the High Council months ago, not as a tyrant, not as a conqueror, but as a reformer. She had presented the transformation engine openly, offering to independency across the empire, offering shared energy freedom to every system. But the Council had not seen liberation. They had seen the end of their control, their power over trade. Routes, resource flow, and political leverage would vanish overnight, and so they had labeled her dangerous, unstable, revolutionary. She did not seek forbidden power. Elias whispered to himself as the truth formed clearly. She tried to free them. Inside the data stream, he saw the final betrayal. The Council did not execute her publicly. They staged it. They attacked her fleet under false pretenses, spread the narrative of treason, and hunted down every loyal commander who questioned the story. The assassin fleet was not just cleaning up rebellion. It was erasing evidence. The royal armor pulsed brighter, as if responding to his understanding. And suddenly the Queen's voice filled his mind again, clearer than before, stronger. "You see it now," she said. "You were never fighting for the throne," Elias replied inside his thoughts. "The throne was never the goal," she answered calmly. The throne was a symbol they needed to control. The warship beneath him began to rotate violently, attempting to dislodge him. Energy arcs surging across its surface, but Elias held on as the armor adapted its grip. "You chose a human," he said, still processing the scale of her plan. "Yes," she replied, "because my people are bound by structure. They follow hierarchy even when it strangles them, but humans challenge systems when they break." Another blast from a nearby assassin ship struck close, the shockwave nearly tearing him free, armor integrity dropping to 64%. "The Council believes control equals stability," she continued, "but stability without evolution becomes decay." Elias suddenly understood the final layer of the blueprint hidden inside the suit. The transformation engine was not just a technological device. It was a catalyst. Once activated, it would distribute decentralized energy nodes across the Empire, making planetary systems independent, no central grid, no single authority to shut them down. The High Council would lose the ability to threaten entire worlds with embargoes or power cuts. "They call you dangerous because you remove their leverage," Elias said. "They call me dangerous because I remove their fear," she corrected gently. Below them, the hidden court palace was crumbling under bombardment, sections collapsing into the ocean depths, masked figures retreating to evacuation chambers, the assassin fleet tightening its formation, preparing for a final coordinated strike. "The throne is empty because they need it empty," Elias realized aloud. "If you return openly, they lose their excuse to rule in emergency." "Yes," she replied, and for the first time there was a hint of quiet sadness in her voice. "I did not seek to sit upon it again." The warship's internal security systems finally traced his connection. Defensive pulses surged through the hull, electricity racing across his armor, pain shooting through his nerves despite the suit's protection. "You seek to dismantle it," he said, teeth clenched as he endured the shock. "To replace rule with choice," she answered. Inside the network, he accessed the fleet's next command. All ships charging for a synchronized planetary annihilation blast aimed not at him, not at the palace, but at the ocean world itself. If they could not capture the armor, they would erase the entire region and rewrite the record. "Elias," the Queen said sharply, "this is where your role begins fully." The armor's core flared with sudden intensity, new pathways opening, a fusion between his neural patterns and the royal protocols deepening, not temporary anymore, but permanent. "You were not chosen to defend me," she said. "You were chosen to decide." He looked down at the burning palace below, then at the 5 assassin warships surrounding him, each one capable of destroying continents. "If I activate the first phase of the engine," he asked, "can we stop them?" "For a moment," she replied, "but the cost will bind you to the armor beyond separation." Energy readings spiked dangerously as the fleet's cannons aligned, light gathering into 5 blinding points aimed directly at the planet's core. Elias took a slow breath inside the helmet, fear still present but no longer controlling him. "The throne was never the truth," he said quietly, understanding settling in fully now. The truth was freedom. And as the assassin fleet began its countdown to fire, Elias reached deep into the armor's core and unlocked the first irreversible stage of the Queen's hidden revolution. The moment Elias unlocked the first irreversible stage of the transformation engine, the universe around him seemed to pause for half a heartbeat. Then everything ignited. Blue light burst outward from the royal armor in expanding rings, not like an explosion, but like a signal spreading across invisible threads. The assassin fleet's synchronized cannons fired at the same time. 5 beams of pure destruction tearing downward toward the ocean world. But before they could reach the planet's surface, the space between them bent, warped by the engine's activation field. The beams curved slightly, losing cohesion, scattering like sunlight through broken glass. Shockwaves rippled across orbit. Alarms screamed inside every council ship as their targeting systems failed simultaneously. Inside his helmet, Elias felt something deeper than power. He felt connection. Thousands of distant nodes flickering awake across nearby star systems. dormant satellites hidden by the Queen years ago, ancient relay stations disguised as mining platforms, forgotten research outposts reactivating in sequence. The engine was not a single machine, it was a distributed awakening, and now it was alive because he had chosen to ignite it. Phase 1 engaged, the armor reported, its voice no longer separate from him, but blended with his thoughts. Neural integration increasing. Pain followed immediately. Sharp and electric, his vision splitting into layers of data and reality. He could see the assassin ships from the outside and from inside their networks at the same time, feel the panic spreading through their command chains, hear the High Council demanding immediate override. "You are exceeding safe human tolerance," the armor warned. "I know," Elias whispered, his voice trembling but steady in purpose. Below, the ocean world stabilized as the redirected energy dispersed harmlessly into space. Tectonic fractures sealing under controlled gravitational correction from newly activated nodes. The hidden court ruins still burned, but the planet would not die today. The assassin fleet adjusted quickly, their commanders not fools. They recognized the activation signature instantly. Transformation engine confirmed. One voice transmitted across open channels, no longer hiding urgency. Guardian must be terminated before phase expansion. All remaining warships shifted focus entirely onto Elias. Dozens of smaller assault crafts launching in swarms, their weapons firing in coordinated bursts, the sky around him turning into a storm of red energy bolts. Armor integrity dropped rapidly, 60%, 57, 53. Probability of survival decreasing. The armor calculated calmly. Elias clenched his jaw as impacts slammed into him from every direction. Shields flickering weakly, systems overheating. But he forced the engine to spread further, activating additional nodes across neighboring sectors. He could feel entire colonies receiving new energy signals, supply chains breaking free from centralized grids, independent systems coming online, the Council's leverage dissolving minute by minute. "Stop the expansion," the Queen's voice echoed faintly, strained by distance and overload. "You must not burn out." "If I stop now," Elias replied through the pain, "they will regroup and crush it." A direct hit from one of the warships struck him squarely, armor cracking along his shoulder, his body spinning uncontrollably through orbit, warning alerts flashing red across his vision. Critical structural failure imminent. For a brief second, fear surged through him stronger than before. Not fear of death, but fear that his choice would not be enough, that the Council would restore control and erase every liberated world. "You were chosen to decide." The Queen's earlier words echoed in his mind. He realized, then, the final truth. The engine could not be sustained by remote activation alone. It required a permanent anchor, a living core, to stabilize its decentralized network, someone bound directly to it beyond separation. "Confirm," he asked the armor quietly, "if I complete neural fusion, what happens?" "Consciousness permanently integrated with royal network," the armor replied. "Physical humanity reduced by 43%, lifespan unpredictable, separation impossible." "And the fleet?" he asked. "Engine Phase 2 will destabilize centralized command systems across Council territories," it answered. That meant their fleets would lose coordinated control, their empire fracturing from within, not destroyed by force, but unraveled by freedom. The assault crafts closed in around him, forming a tightening sphere, cannons charging for a point-blank execution strike. Elias thought of Earth for a brief moment, of quiet repair bays and simple tools, of being invisible and safe. Then he looked at the expanding web of liberated systems glowing in his vision, and he understood something simple and deeply human. Sometimes fixing something broken means becoming part of it. "Begin fusion," he said. The armor did not hesitate. Energy surged inward instead of outward, blue light wrapping around his body like liquid fire, neural pathways merging with the engine's distributed network, pain beyond description tearing through him as his senses expanded across multiple star systems at once. He was no longer just one body in orbit. He was connected to thousands of nodes, feeling the pulse of distant worlds stabilizing under new independence. The assassin fleet fired at the same moment, but Phase 2 activated instantly, a shockwave of decentralized code ripping through their command frequencies. Their synchronized attack collapsed into chaos, ships losing coordination, some firing in empty space, others colliding as their guidance systems desynced, central command signals from the High Council flickering and fragmenting. Elias floated at the center of the storm, armor glowing brighter than any star in orbit, cracks sealing as the engines stabilized through him, his physical heartbeat slowing but expanding across the network. The lead assassin ship attempted one final focus strike, diverting all remaining power into its main cannon. But before it could fire, its internal control grid shattered under Phase 2's cascade. The massive vessel went dark mid-charge, drifting helplessly. Across the Council's territories, centralized power nodes began to fail one by one, not destroyed but rendered obsolete, replaced by self-sustaining, decentralized systems the Council could no longer command. The ocean world below grew quiet at last, waters calming, debris settling into deep trenches. Inside the fusion, Elias felt himself changing, not disappearing, but evolving, less isolated, more distributed, his humanity not erased but amplified across scale. Fusion complete. The armor stated softly, though now it was simply his own voice. The remaining assassin ships, leaderless and destabilized, retreated into deep space, their formation broken beyond repair. High above the recovering world, Elias hovered alone in silence. No longer just a scavenger, no longer fully human in the old sense, but something new, something the Council had never prepared for. And as distant stars flickered with newly awakened freedom, he understood that the real battle had never been about killing fleets. It had been about choosing what kind of future deserved to exist. Silence settled slowly over the ocean world, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that comes after something irreversible has happened. Fragments of damaged assassin ships drifted in distant orbit, their once perfect formation broken into scattered debris. The ocean shield was gone. The palace of the hidden court lay half submerged beneath dark waters, and above it all Elias floated in stillness. Blue light no longer flashing wildly, but pulsing in calm, steady waves from the royal armor. That was no longer simply armor. It was him. And he was it. His vision stretched beyond the single planet now, across star systems where decentralized nodes had awakened, worlds that had depended on Council energy grids, now running on their own independent cores, trade routes shifting, governors panicking, entire sectors realizing quietly that the High Council could no longer turn off their stars with a command. Inside the vast network that now lived within him, Elias felt movement, a presence stabilizing, gathering shape from scattered fragments of stored consciousness. And then she appeared, not as a weak flicker, but whole, standing within the digital expanse like a rising dawn, the alien queen, no longer hidden, no longer divided, her form clear and steady, her eyes sharper than before. "You anchored it," she said softly, and this time there was no distortion in her voice. "You planned it," Elias replied, his thoughts flowing naturally into the shared space. "I planned for possibility," she corrected gently. "You made it real." Below them, evacuation vessels lifted from the ruined palace, masked loyalists escaping before the last structures collapsed fully into the sea. But something else was happening across the empire. Transmissions were flooding open channels. Not calls for war, not demands for retaliation, but confusion. Governors asking why their systems were suddenly independent. Engineers discovering they no longer required council authorization to power entire cities. Whispers spreading that the Queen's so-called treason had freed them, not endangered them. "The throne will not hold after this," Elias said, feeling distant political tremors ripple through the network. Council chambers turning against one another as their control slipped. "The throne was never meant to hold," she replied calmly. "It was meant to guide." A new transmission burst through open space, not encrypted this time, broadcast publicly from the fractured High Council chamber itself. Voices arguing in panic, accusations flying, some calling for total war against every liberated system, others demanding immediate surrender to avoid collapse. The unity that had once made them untouchable was dissolving faster than any fleet could repair. "You could return now," Elias said quietly. "Reclaim authority while they are weak." She stepped closer within the network space, her presence warm yet powerful. "Authority built on fear is already dead," she answered. "What rises next must be chosen, not seized." He felt her intention clearly then. She did not want to sit upon a throne of ruins. She wanted something new, a decentralized alliance rather than an empire, but that future would not emerge without protection, because the Council would not surrender quietly. There would be loyalist fleets, rogue commanders, extremist factions desperate to restore the old order. "You need a guardian," Elias realized, not as a title, but as a role. "I need balance," she said, "and you are the bridge between worlds." Across distant space, scattered assassin ships regrouped weakly, not coordinated, but still dangerous, smaller council fleets launching in desperation, attempting to reassert dominance in border sectors, the first sparks of a wider fracture igniting across the galaxy. "You fused with the engine," she continued, her tone turning more serious. "You are its anchor, but also its shield. Without you, the network collapses. With you, it evolves." Elias felt the weight of that truth settle. He could not return to Earth as he once was, could not step back in a quiet repair bays and pretend nothing had changed. His consciousness was threaded through liberated worlds, every node pulsing in rhythm with him. "What happens if I fall?" he asked plainly. "The network will fragment," she replied, not avoiding the answer. "But you will not fall easily." A new surge of energy moved through him as distant systems linked more strongly. Independent worlds sending acknowledgement signals, some even broadcasting symbols of the Queen's old crest, not as submission, but as recognition. "You are no longer just a scavenger," she said softly. "You are the guardian of a transition." Far beyond the ocean world, one final council stronghold activated a hidden weapon, a last resort device designed to purge decentralized signals within a limited radius. Its power building silently, its commanders hoping to sever the network before it stabilized fully. Elias felt it immediately, a distortion in the flow, like static creeping into clear water. "They will try one more time," he said. "They always do," she replied calmly. He turned his awareness toward the threat, focusing through the network, calculating response vectors across multiple systems at once, something no single organic mind could have done before. But he was no longer single. He was distributed, layered, expanded. Blue light gathered around him again in orbit above the ocean world. Not wild, not desperate, but controlled and immense, his physical form still visible as a luminous figure against the stars, but far more present within the network than outside it. "Then let them see," he said quietly. The Queen watched as he redirected decentralized energy streams toward the hidden weapon's location, not to destroy it directly, but to isolate it, cutting off its support, overloading its supply chain through systemic independence. The device flickered, destabilized, and then shut down without a single explosion, neutralized not by force, but by irrelevance. Across the galaxy, something shifted permanently. Centralized fear gave way to uncertain freedom. The High Council fractured beyond repair, some factions dissolving, others attempting negotiation with newly empowered systems. In the digital expanse, the Queen stood beside him. No throne behind her now, no crown of dominance, only a quiet strength. "The empire ends," she said, "but something better begins." Elias looked out at the stars, feeling every liberated world like distant heartbeats connected to his own. "I was just fixing broken metal," he said almost to himself. "And now," she replied gently, "you guard a living future, far in the darkness of unexplored space, beyond mapped territories and liberated sectors." Faint signals stirred. Ancient observers who had watched the Council's rule for centuries now noticing the sudden imbalance of power, new forces calculating their response to a galaxy no longer centralized. Inside the armor, inside himself, Elias heard a quiet echo, not warning, not fear, but anticipation. The war that had begun in secret beneath an ocean world was over. But the age that followed would test something far greater than empires. And as the first independent alliance broadcast its formation across open space, naming the queen not as ruler, but as empress by choice, Elias understood his place clearly at last. He was not her soldier. He was not her weapon. He was the new empress's guardian. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, a new challenge was already moving toward them, unseen, waiting for the moment to strike.